Welcome back to Getting Your Ducks in a Row. Today we're joined by Connor Stephen, founder of Abode Architects. Connor is a man who is taking a refreshingly thoughtful approach to architecture and business. In this episode we talk about the evolution of his practice, the rise of sustainability in passive house design, and how he's using tech to completely transform the client experience. We also get into the real life realities of running a business and why sometimes less really is more. Enjoy. Connor, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me, Jason.
You've built a practice focused on creating beautiful, sustainable homes. But take us back to the beginning. What first inspired you to become an architect, and how did that journey lead you to founding Abode Architects?
Yeah, it's a strange one. Like growing up initially, I never thought about kind of going into architecture. All through school, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. Until third year of school, where I went and done my work experience. Absolutely hated it from start to finish, full week of it. And that kind of just completely shifted my focus and my direction. I'd always been kind of surrounded by construction. So my dad's a joiner. My papa drove a digger. He was a ground worker. Uncle's a rough caster. So we kind of always been surrounded by trade. So there was always a kind of an interest in building things and constantly being surrounded by it. But my dad always said that he didn't want me kind of working on site, didn't want me doing that side of things. And I enjoyed technical drawing at school. So that fascination with buildings, construction, technical drawing kind of led me down that direction of studying architecture. Now after so go to university, do your part one, your part two. Studied in Glasgow and Belgium, and then after I left university, started working at a practice in Glasgow called Master Architects, who work on loads of social housing. So that's where I became fully qualified, set my professional exams. So I worked a lot in that industry of social housing sites and developments up to about kind of 70 to 80 dwellings per time.
What was that like? That's a lot of volume work, I assume.
It is. It's an interesting sector because you're always trying to reinvent the wheel on every project. The big difference between that and, let's say, a volume house builder they just want to cookie cut the exact same thing everywhere. Whereas you're always striving as an architect at that time you want to do something a bit different. You want to do something that's a bit more grounded in the place where you're building. So we worked a lot in Ayrshire at the time, which is a kind of area of Scotland. So we were always going to try to be inspired by the materials around the local area, the kind of the coastal nature of some of the towns and cities, and not cities, towns that we were working in, and trying to kind of develop that kind of deep rooted, new development for the town. But it's big, so it's being a kind of freshly qualified architect working on 70 houses on a development, and you're kind of the guy who everyone's having to come to ask the site queries. You're coordinating the architectural design, the engineering design, the M&E design. You're that kind of main liaison point, and I had a good mentor there, but that kind of allows you to build the necessary skills to run these types of projects.
So it's a good, I imagine it's a good grounding in that sort of space, if you like, of architecture, because from what the picture you've just painted there, your role seemed quite varied, and from a relatively young age, you had quite a lot of responsibility early on, which I imagine sort of stood you in good stead going forward.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I think they have 100% pass rate at that practice of people sitting the professional exam and becoming a qualified architect. They're really well set up for taking people out of university, training them up to the required skill level to be a fully qualified architect running projects, and giving you that experience to run them. So yeah, you get a really good and varied, experience and that practice. I worked there from 2013 through 2018, so kind of 5-ish years. And it was shortly after kind of fully qualifying that I then decided, okay, I've now delivered or delivering the 4 big jobs that I'm working on. It's kind of time to move to the next scale and the next kind of chapter for me. So I moved to a kind of slightly bigger practice again. So when I joined Mass, there was 23, 24 staff. When I left, there was 50 something. So they doubled in size in that kind of short 5-year period. But then moved on to Cooper Chroma Architects, they were 60, 70 staff at the time, so it's just another step up in scale, both in kind of practice size, but also building typology. So I'm now really working on apartments and flatted developments at a scale of, I think the smallest project that I worked on there was probably 170, 180 units. So it's kind of again doubled in scale there. And then leading those as kind of lead architect through that, and leading a kind of smaller team of technicians and other newly qualified architects through that process. During that time, like kind of most people, were all moonlighting and doing private work on the side in the evenings and the weekends for your holiday money or for whatever reason you're doing it. And we then approached COVID, the dreaded thing that everyone hates to talk about nowadays. But it was during that period that then, so there all 70 of us got sent to work from home. That you strip yourself out of the big practice where you enjoyed the kind of the hustle and bustle of the office and everyone being in and around. It's suddenly just you working in your bedroom on these same, massive, massive projects. At the same time, my private work on the side, clients were people had more money because we weren't really able to spend as much because you were all stuck at home. You couldn't go on holiday. The workload there just started to grow and grow, and I became at this kind of junction point. So it was either go all in and go and do it, or stay where I am at Cooper Chroma and roll back completely and don't do anything. And it was a difficult one because I was working on a really exciting project at Cooper Chroma at the time. So it was a student residential block right in the heart of Glasgow city centre, which is now it's now built and finished and looks fantastic. But I was at that. We had just submitted the planning application, so that would have been like the next 2-3 years of my life would be working through the delivery of that. But I always had it in the back of my head, I think, for probably 3, 4, 5 years before that I wanted to drop down a scale, stop working on the big commercial world stuff. Really enjoyed those evenings and weekends dealing with Mr. and Mrs. Smith who want to build an extension because it's going to completely change how they live in their house, in that one-to-one connection and the quicker turnaround. I'm explaining there that we had just submitted planning, but it was going to be the next 3, 4 years of my life working on the delivery of this job. Turnaround on small projects is, 6 months, 12 months. It's a very, very quick process in comparison. Still not, 12 months, still a long time, but so yeah, had it in the back of my head that I wanted to do it. One of my friends had got furloughed from his practice, and he went and set up his own as well. So he set up his own practice, and I thought, can't sit back and watch him living that. So that was it. Handed in my notice a couple of weeks later, and set up Abode Architects.
Wow, fair play. So you had a sort of pipeline of work, shall we say, from the private stuff you were doing on the weekends, and that eased the transition?
That eased the transition, and Cooper Chroma were fantastic. They offered to keep me on part-time, so that I had a steady 2 days per week. It helped them and it helped me because there was continuity on a project to get it finished and over the line for the next few months. And it helped me because I was guaranteed I was doing, 16 hours a week on regular salary pay. And then I could concentrate the other the other 3 days a week on really building that pipeline of new projects for myself. Yeah.
So how did you find the transition from being, full-time employed in an industry and space that you wanted to be in, albeit you perhaps weren't doing the type of work you totally wanted to do, but you're still doing some great work. I mean, you mentioned some great projects there. How did you find that transition from that to then running your own business, albeit with a pipeline? I mean, that is a big shift, not just sort of, a lifestyle shift, but mentally you're going from being part of a team to, the buck stops with you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How was that?
Challenging. It's the bit that no one ever really wants to talk about, and it's the bit that no one can teach you. You go from being just the architect, just the guy doing the drawings, to suddenly you're winning the projects, you're meeting the new clients, you're doing the fee proposals, you're sending the invoices, you're setting up your HMRC tax, you're getting an account. You've got all these things around building a business. So you've got then the two hats to wear. You're the architect in one hand, and then you're the business owner in the other. You really need to try and learn that as quick as you can. And there's no real easy way. I don't think you can read a book and suddenly know how to run a business. It's only by being on the ground, making the mistakes and doing that kind of thing that you can then, start to find some way to operate these two different hats. I say it's very difficult.
It is. It's Alex Hormozy, who I really like and respect, and I think he's a great sort of business guru, and just, I watch a lot of his stuff, I read his books, and one of the things he said, and I'm probably going to do a really bad job of portraying this or conveying it, but he said, running a business is like running a marathon without training. You're training while you're running it, and you have no idea where the finish line is. And it's really sort of paints that picture that you're painting there, which is you come into it, and I imagine a lot of people harbour ambitions to start their own business, and especially in a field that they love and with work that they enjoy doing. But there's so much other stuff that you have to do, and we started our business, God blimey, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer. I lose track. But I was in the legal profession before that, and I did sort of business development and sales in the legal sector. Yeah. I was employed and I had a good job, well paid, but I didn't enjoy it. I was sort of I suppose an element of being stuck in it, right? Missus, house, kids, that cliche, you're tied in and all the rest of it. And we started the business. Well, it was a side hustle, really, being honest, it was. And my brother's more the creative side, I'm more of the BD sales side. And long story short, we came together to create the Dux Digital. And it was great at the beginning, you're full of enthusiasm and you're doing a bit of the work, you're doing a bit of this, you're doing a bit of that. And then as you grow, you expand the business, you find, or certainly I do anyway, that work that I really loved doing that gave me the motivation to start the business, I do less and less of now.
Not the thing you're doing.
Yeah, because I'm being a director of a business, I find anyway, maybe I'm doing it wrong, I don't know. Maybe if any of our listeners can point me in the right direction, great. But I find, I'm doing less of the sort of the actual work, the sort of hands-on work, if I can say, and more of the overseeing. And it's bizarre, really. And I think you have to, and that for me is when building a culture and a business that you want to be in, and you build your team around you, and you have that atmosphere that you want to go to every day. That's what I think keeps you going.
Definitely.
It is a tough one. I mean, in terms of Abode, how big are you as a business now?
Yeah, well, that's kind of interestingly what I was going to go on and talk about there was kind of, I relate completely to what you're saying in terms of you do less and less and less of the thing that made you start the thing that you're doing. So for me, 2020, I started the business. by the end of 2021, maybe start of 2022, I can't remember which. There's five of us. We were grown the team to five. Um, and my entire role has flipped on its head at this point. So my role now as a leader of five people is going out to win new work, going out to meet existing clients, dealing with overseeing and programming of, okay, who's working on what, when's that getting done, have we got enough invoices issued this month, have we, you know, that becomes at five people, that becomes your role. But in architecture, certainly, you know, again, other architects may be able to help me with this, but our fee structure weren't fantastic at the time either. That's something else you're learning as you go. So it means that my role can't be only that. I also then have to be hands on the ground, doing drawing work, doing design, and that's a bit I enjoy. Um, so I would be 9 till 5 or 8 till 5, almost running the business, and then 5 till 10 in the evening, or sometimes later, now sitting doing the drawing work that was starting to bottleneck at me. There's perhaps more junior members of staff would be doing initial drafts. They would then come to me. I would work it up to the next stage, and then goes back to someone else. Things were really starting to bottleneck at me because I'm having to be out the office all day, having to make sure that we're bringing in, 25, 30 grand of fees per month in new projects, whilst also then trying to deliver or help the rest of the team deliver 25 to 30 grand of invoices every single month. So that was the stage we were at up until end of 2023. Kind of suffered through that. For me personally, I really didn't enjoy that period. So there was a kind of year and a bit where I was really, really questioning, have I done the right thing? Loved everyone in the team. But I wasn't getting the fulfillment and the enjoyment that I had set up the business to do. So you ask me the question now, and I'll tell you that there's just me. There's no one else in the team. I've rolled it right back. I took about almost a year away from full time architecture as well, just to help me roll the business back. I went and worked for a company called Sega, who are a manufacturer of construction products. So I was one of their technical advisors, and I was working with architects, and I was doing all that kind of stuff. But that kind of helped me pull my head out of it for a period of time, and allow me to come back in. And now recently fully back full time into the business, which it now runs in a completely different way, and it's just so much more enjoyable for me.
I think, and this may be a topic that we come on to a bit later, but in a different sense. But I think it rings true here, is that what's sustainable. So for you running a business, and I'll take my hat off to you, because to build something to a point where you're successful, you've got a team of people around you to then have the sort of presence of mind to say, do you know what, I think I need to actually roll this back a bit, is a massive step. Because a lot of people I know, and there are lots of people out there that carry on. That bottleneck as well is such a thing. I mean, it's that constant balance, and business owners that I speak to, finding that balance between, building your team to a certain size where you can delegate and then it frees up capacity, but then you need to train these people. It's such a difficult balance. And to roll that back and almost have a bit of a reset, that's a bold move.
It was scary. It was scary to do that, because for me, growing up and just everything in my life up until that point, success had always meant numbers. How many people? How many projects are you working on? What's your turnover? These were all the kind of measures of success that I had put in place. But those aren't, like, now that those don't matter. It's a kind of taking the ego out of it. will love to stand in the pub on a Friday night and say, "Oh yeah, we got 70 projects on the books. How many are you guys working on? Oh, we've only 50. You know, who cares now? Now I'm going to be working on 10 at most per year. I'm so much happier for it. Like it's so much more sustainable. There's no current plans for 60, 70 hour weeks that were happening then. You know, it means that I can, and I'm assuming we'll get into it a little bit later on our process and how we work with clients and that kind of thing. But it means that I can kind of really, really laser focus in on a select few projects rather than spreading it thin across many.
That's a similar model to what we've adopted in the sense that we've got a small team, and we steer clear of volume. So the type of work we do is essentially related to business growth, and it's using various different sort of tools to essentially partner with businesses, come in, help them acquire new partnerships, help sort of bridge the gap between sales and marketing, help them sort of infiltrate new markets and various other things. But where we're different is we don't pile them on. So we work with a select few clients at any one time, which, and we've got better at this, but that can be sometimes, can have a bit of an impact on your pipeline going forward. But we've found ways of managing that and sort of, as much as you can as a business owner, sort of turn the tap on and off when you need it. And, you know, it doesn't always work as easy as that. But yeah, because for us also, in what we do, you have to be able to, so Mike and I, he's just sitting over there. So you keep wondering why I'm looking over there. We run the business, and what we say to our clients is, you get us from day one. We have people that will be part of the team, but we work on every project. So you're getting that, you know, you're getting the directors of the company on it. Now, people that I've spoken to before say, why are you doing that? Like, it really bottlenecks you. But we're able to, our fee structure, shall we say, reflects that. But what that means is we don't have to go down the route of volume where we're constantly chasing that, right, okay, let's bring on 5 more clients. Okay, now we need to bring on 2, 3 more members of staff. And you're just this constant juggling act. And obviously, you know, as a business, we want to grow, but the model that we've got at the moment gives us that sustainability. And it's not a constant rat race. But it's interesting that you've gone down that route, and I imagine from a mental perspective, you're a lot sort of looser, shall we say?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, it's just the same thing for me. Like when I'm now speaking to prospective clients, is like, 'cause it was always, if I actually step back, it was always me who went and done the consultation meeting anyway. It was always me who took the initial phone call. It was always me who done the seed proposal. So up until that point, people were dealing with me. And then it would get handed off to another member of the team to deliver the project. Whereas now, you know, and I had to work really hard to, when you're selling it, as you were selling the team at the time, because I knew that it wouldn't be me who'd be doing that particular project. I'd be involved, but I wouldn't be anywhere near fully involved. Whereas now, everyone knows from the beginning. I mean, you're getting me from now till we're standing inside the kitchen when the house is finished. There's no kind of lost in translation between me coming to a meeting and discussing something with you and telling someone else to draw it. You know, there's none of that. It's now I'm there the whole way. I know everything about the project. I'm fully invested in it. Now, yes, that naturally costs a bit more in terms of fee structure, but equally, there's certain things that I bring to the table that, you know, I'll be able to do 2 or 3 times as fast as a junior member of staff. So if I'm if our rate's at £100 an hour and the junior member of staff's on 50, well, you know, it's still able to balance itself comfortably.
Well, is that value piece you mentioned there.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting someone of your experience throughout and the continuity that brings, that, you know, there's nothing lost in translation there. You know exactly what your capacity is and when you can deliver. So whilst, okay, from the outset, and actually generally it may cost slightly more than it would going to someone else, but there's a hell of a lot more value there. And that having that sort of model as well allows you to sort of it very quickly establishes the clients that understand value and those that don't, and also the people that therefore you want to work with.
Yeah, and we're working with a different caliber of client nowadays, and have been for the last couple of years now. You know, the projects that I'm working on are, you know, anything north of kind of generally 200K is a kind of nice number, as a kind of the smaller, and then, you know, right up to five, six, seven, 800. You know, for that, and then new builds will be, you know, 1 million plus generally. So, you know, the value is different. The perception of value is very different. You know, that's a different model that we're working with nowadays, and having that, you know, person who's heavily invested from the beginning to the end, you know, like me here, is it brings value to the client. The other thing is it's a relationship, because we're working with people for over a year generally. You know, so you're going to speak to, and I always tell this to prospective clients, is like, when you're selecting who to work with, be it an architect, technician, whoever it may be, remember that you're going to speak to this person multiple times per week from this point now to this point next year or longer, depending on the type of project. That's the thing that you need to base your decision on, is, you know, can I work with this person? And I'm equally doing the exact same thing when we're meeting with people. You know, is this a two-way relationship that's going to yield a really fantastic project at the end of it? Are we going to be able to work together? And
Yeah.
sometimes the answer is yes to the project, but no to us being able to work together, and we just have to part ways and not do the project. The opposite is sometimes the project's not great, but the relationship's fantastic. So you actually do take the project because the relationship makes the project worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that in the world that we're in with AI and all the rest of it, that principle I think still stands, that people buy from people, and particularly when you're working on a sort of, you know, medium to long term projects, as you mentioned, 6 to 12, maybe even longer months. You have to work with someone that isn't going to drive you mad after 3-4 months of working together, and you think, you know, this all looks great, but I can't stand him because it just doesn't work. In the end, it all falls down.
No, of course, definitely does. Definitely does. Um,
So in terms of your sort of process, and you've sort of answered a bit of the question that I was going to ask you about sort of you seem very collaborative with your clients, and you're obviously working with them one to one, which is fantastic. But give us a bit of insight into your creative process. Like if I were to phone you up tomorrow and say, Connor, look, I've got I don't know, in my dreams, but I've got a plot of land that I want to build a couple of new builds on. How would we then start working together? What does that look like?
yeah. So it depends on the type of project. So the bulk of our work tends to be full renovations of houses, kind of more listed or older properties, and then maybe like a, nicely designed extension or so to that. That's kind of one side of it, and then you've got the developer side, which is the kind of the bit you touch on. I'll touch on one and then the other. Um, Process is always the same, and it's been like this since we had the team as well. If someone calls me up, um, we won't have a conversation too much about the project during that call. Um, Really important for me that I time block my day to work on what I'm working on. I've got meetings, I've got everything. So there's only set periods that I can be fully invested in a conversation about your project. So I don't want it to be that you call me up and I pick up the phone, I'm in the middle of dealing with a building warrant, and I'm not fully there. I'm still looking at my screen while I'm on the phone to you. It doesn't work for any of us. So what I'll do is I take some basic details on the phone, and I'll text over a link. We always do everything digitally. Text over a link to book in for a call. Um, that then just links straight onto our website. Choose a date, time that suits you. You fill in a couple of details, what project type, value, what you're looking for. Basic details. Main ones, actually the reason that started was I became terrible at remembering to write down email addresses and phone numbers. So it just captures all that data that we that we need to actually go forward with the process. So someone books that free telephone call. So it's a free call, 30 minutes, and they get me for 30 minutes. So it's not that I'm distracted. It's nothing. It's in my diary. It's booked in. We're going to have a chat about your project. Now we'll chat about the design process during that. We'll chat about the statutory approval process, so your plan, building warrant, what's the building consent, any of these different things that are needed for that particular project, what other consultants we might need, budgets and that. They're a very kind of loose conversation for 30 minutes and get a feel for each other. If the project seems like a good fit for both people, we'll arrange to then visit site or visit the house. So that's then the first official step of the process. That's a paid consultation at the house. Again, that gets you when we're there for an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes, having a really, really in-depth conversation about your project. And we're talking about things you like, things you don't like, what works in the house right now, what doesn't. We're doing walk rounds, we're seeing the place, we're doing light investigation work just in terms of visual, not invasive or anything. And really start to build a picture of what that brief is. Because the brief is the primary thing that drives the project forward. You need to have a clear understanding of what you want to achieve at the other end of it. And we get free resources and stuff on our website. We've always been big on having documents and downloads and stuff that people can get access free of charge, have a look through, help them build their own brief, help them build a picture of how the project might move forward, how to build your own budget, all of that kind of stuff. It's all there on the website, and easy to get. But we use that initial consultation there then to really kind of hone in on that brief. During that, we'll then talk about indicative project fees and that kind of thing from our end, and then I'll go away and work up a fee proposal separately. Again, digitally, everything gets sent over. Really easy to just choose the service type that you want. So there's bits that will be optional. If you want 3D visualizations, do you need site support? Do you only want it to end at building control approval, or do you need the full service all the way through? And people can then pick and choose a service level model that works for them. Some people just want a basic drawings package to building control approval and then hand it over, and because they know their own builder. Others want that full service from start to finish, where we're helping them appoint trades and main contractors and helping them manage that full process, start to finish. So yeah, after all fees and everything are agreed, we can then begin the actual onboarding process and get the project running from that point.
Is that more on the, that presumably that's more on the sort of renovation side?
Mainly that, but we'll still do the site visit on new build, because it's really, really important to actually visit the land or do anything like that. When it's new build, so if it's new build for developer or homeowner, we do what's called a kind of needs and options appraisal. And that's a kind of low investment for a client. It's a couple of £1,000, but we'll do almost a feasibility study, really, really high level sketches and rough layouts and building shapes and forms and stuff, just to get a feel for, okay, what's actually viable site here. And the good thing is with that, people then, they can take that, that's just a standalone service that we'll offer. We'll do a full appraisal, this is the planning regs that you're going to have to meet for it. These are the different criteria that the building must have. And here's a kind of rough couple of options for a building. They can either then go, great, let's proceed, let's go ahead. Or they go, do you know what, we're not going to buy that land, or we're going to go in a different direction. They can take that document and go wherever with it. It becomes a really valuable service.
Well, it allows you to assess the feasibility of it, as you say, before you actually properly commit. Because particularly sort of pockets of land. There's a pocket of land near where I live in Essex, in Hornchurch, and it's a sliver of land along the sort of boundary of a country park and the sort of residential road that runs parallel to it, and I walk my dog every morning, and every time I look at it, I just think, so someone must own it. It's private land, but you can't get access to it because the road is a dead end road essentially, and there's no way of getting access to this piece of land, so you can't build on it.
Yeah, you can't.
It's I say funny, sounds like I'm sort of poking fun at whoever owns it, but I just think someone potentially could have looked at that and thought, oh, do you know what? That'd be a great investment. I'm going to buy it's quite a big, I don't know how big it is in terms of acres or whatever, but it's quite a big, patch of land. And someone, I imagine, at some point has thought, do you know what? I'm going to take a chance on that. Probably hasn't done their due diligence and has then realised, actually, this is pointless. I can't get any access to it.
They've thought they've got a steal. They've bought that pocket of land for 25 grand or something, thinking I'm going to put 3, 4, 5 houses on here. It happens all the time. Land for sale at auctions, and we've got, as much as we do that service, we've got a couple of clients who I work with fairly regular that they'll sometimes just bring a site to me, and I'll do a quick 1 hour kind of sketch chat through with them, and that allows them to go, yeah, we're going to go for it, or no, it's not worth it. We maybe need to get more information, or as you say, how on earth are they even accessing this? They just see the red line and go, I could get 10 houses in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but there's no road touching that red line anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. That is definitely something that I could potentially do as well. If I had the opportunity to go, oh yeah, that looks like a great opportunity, buy the piece of land, come to someone like you when I'm fully committed, and you just say, no, that's useless.
Yeah, it's like there could just be something to do with particular planning policy in that area that goes that you just simply aren't allowed to build there, or you can't do this, or there's mine shafts under it, or there's a main sewer drain runs underneath. All these things play into whether something's viable or not. You're going to spend 60 grand to move the drainage system around the site. It doesn't stack up. So these are the kind of important things that must happen at that really, really early stage. There'll be nothing, spending 2 or 3 grand doing a quick feasibility study versus spending 50, 60, 70 grand buying a plot that's unviable. What investment would you rather make?
Yeah, exactly. So anyone listening that's thinking about taking a punt on a patch of land, get your feasibility report done first. Speak to Connor. One of the things I wanted to, and we touched on this in a different form earlier, but sustainability is such a big thing in the industry, and it is becoming ever more so as time passes. And I'm particularly interested in the sort of the renovation side of your business, because making an older structure or older home or whatever more sustainable does have a lot more limitations than if you're just going from scratch.
Yeah.
So how do you, being an architect, you obviously have an eye for design. You want to, fulfill your client's brief, give them a beautiful home that's, fit for purpose and all the rest of it. But there is obviously that sustainable element that comes into it. How do you sort of manage the two? How do you balance it?
Yeah, I've been banging the drum on this for a very long time. Sustainability is kind of one of the top things that I'll speak about generally when I'm meeting with clients for the first time. Try not to maybe include it too much in the call, but definitely when we're at the house, we're looking at, okay, how can we improve the fabric? How can we improve the comfort of living in this house? So for me personally, so I'm a certified passive house designer. I've been for a number of years. So passive house is I don't know if you know about it, but perhaps the listeners don't. It's a German standard for low energy building. So it's got kind of set criteria to do with airtightness, insulation and U value levels, heat recovery, all these different things all rolled in, and it creates a really, really nice, comfortable and warm house environment that genuinely barely needs a heating on. There were studies done where it was minus 10 degrees outside, and the house kept its temperature for like 10 or 12 days. I can't remember the exact, but without the heating even being switched on. Because everything we do in a house generates heat. So when you've got a heat recovery system, it's capturing that heat and redistributing it through the house. via fresh air as it comes in. But there's a separate side to that standard which is called Enerfit, which is the same standard rolled back slightly, so it's not as onerous for existing buildings. So what we're doing is we're then going, okay, how can we improve the airtightness? Airtightness is a big one. Obviously, I mentioned that I took almost a year away working for a company called Sega. They're an airtightness manufacturer. And that really, really deepened my understanding of how airtightness works, how we control the movement of moisture in old historic buildings, because that's always a big consideration. Most of the properties we work on in Scotland are solid stone walls. So trapped moisture becomes a real issue. There's so many, makes you shudder a little bit. There's so many people just throwing, Kingspan rigid insulation against the back face of the stonework and sheeting it in plasterboard. Right now, that's not going to cause an issue. In 5 years, 10 years, we're going to start to really see some trapped moisture issues there that are perhaps hollowing out the back of the stone, causing mold on the room side. It becomes a really, really poor quality environment to work in. The room that I'm sitting in right now is this is in our house, and we're doing a kind of deep retrofit of this. So it's an old sandstone semi-detached house that we've ripped back to the stone, and then we've insulated it so we've done a solid wall build up, but with breathable insulation everywhere, and a kind of intelligent vapor control layer, the Sega Myrex membrane, which basically means that there's no moisture is then getting trapped inside that construction. It becomes really, really airtight. So without going into too much technical sides of things, but the more airtight your building can be, your energy demand plummets. So a new built house with an airtightness level of 5, which is the standard in Scotland per the building regulations, about 1/5, 1/6 of your entire energy demand for the building is just because there's gaps and leaks around windows and floor junctions and roofs, and so that's a huge energy demand per year just because there's holes in your building.
Yeah.
Whereas when we're then working on deep retrofit stuff, we're improving the airtightness, we're improving the thermal, and that brings that down to a tiny, tiny fraction. We're talking, that's a 1/5 for 5. It's probably around about 10th or 12th, even smaller, a real fraction of your energy demand. And the whole purpose of that is we're just trying to keep insulation dry. Every measure we're doing in a house, in a historic house, we're lifting floors, we're insulating, we're wrapping membranes down and underneath, and creating a kind of sandwich between two membranes for insulation to sit in. The whole purpose of that is just to keep the insulation dry. The drier and less wind hitting that insulation, the better it is for the house. I've got a kind of nice analogy I use for speaking to kind of homeowners and people who don't quite understand that process is basically, if you were only to wear a big thick woolly jumper, nothing else, and go hill walking or climbing, how would you feel?
Extremely hot and sweaty.
Hot and sweaty under the jumper, and then when the wind hits you, freezing cold.
Yeah.
Or if the rain hits you, freezing cold. So you're going to wear a base layer underneath the jumper, and you're going to wear a jacket over it. That, and those 3-layer system is the way that we describe any house, regardless of if it's a new build or if it's a retrofit. That's what we're trying to do, create that sandwich between the insulated layers and just create a really nice, warm environment that becomes so much more comfortable to live in. We're not even anywhere near finished this house, but our energy bills have gone from, I think it was about 300 quid a month, and then last I checked, I think we're about 50 to 70.
Wow. My next question, Connor, was going to be, how long would it take for you to get a return? I know it's return on your investment. I know it's not always that for everyone, but I suppose there's an element of, if I'm going to go, without obviously you divulging your personal finances, I know you've worked on your home, but how long, like the project where you've stripped it right back, how long does that take? How much does something like that cost?
Yeah. So it fully depends on the scale of the house, depends on the nature of the works. You know, I'm not going to go into every house we work in and suggest that they rip all the features out and go back to the stonework. We'll try and localize it, you know, as much as we can. Unless someone that's the prerogative as the like our house here hadn't been renovated since the 60s. You know, so it needed all the finishes had to come off anyway to decorate. So we were like, well, mentioned at the beginning, my dad's a joiner, so he's been a very busy man over the week.
Yeah.
You know, for us, it made sense to do that. For other people, it might not make sense. And it genuinely is. I wouldn't even want to put a number on it, but the payback is not 5 years. It's going to be 10, 15 years generally to get that kind of good quality return on your investment there. But as you touched on, that's not what it's about. It's the time now. You know, I don't. Apart from the developer clients we work with, I don't really tend to like to work on projects where I know the people are only going to stay there for a couple of years and then move on. I'm in it, but I'm invested in it as well. I'm looking to do the project that a family grows into, and the people really, you know, this is their forever house, or at least for the next 10, 15, 20 years. You know, they don't plan on moving, and the return on investment for them is that they just have this beautiful, warm, comfortable house that you know doesn't cripple them with energy bills at the minute.
Yeah, I hear that. We bought our first house in 2013. We're still living there now, and it was like walking into a 1970s time warp when we bought
Yeah.
it. And we bought it off an elderly couple, and the usual. And we at the time, most people, when you buy your first house, we moved in and we were spent. Like, we had that was
Hey,
it.
nothing. Hey.
It was, we had, and we redecorated it in time, saved up a bit of money. Ended up, it needed a full rewire. We had that done, but one of my mates was an electrician, so that helped. We had it all replastered. We did gut it, but we did the bare minimum which was still a lot because of the shape that it was in inside. We did the bare minimum that we could get away with at the time because we didn't have the excess funds to really invest in it. And what ended up happening is so we lived there for about 5 years. We'd bought a cheap kitchen that started falling apart. There was no insulation. There was an extension on the back of the house that had been done by the previous owner that wasn't insulated. So we ended up having to take the roof off because also there was a leak in the roof. We never had that done. So it really, I won't, because I just don't really want to know it, to be honest. But I reckon because we've done things maybe twice, 3 times over, because, as you get a bit more money behind you, you have time to invest. Actually, if we'd done it properly at the start, we would have saved money. And it's not just about money either. I understand that is a thing for people, but also we would have had a home that we wouldn't have had to change when we had children, because things had to change.
Because it's adaptable at the time, and it's been done with that future in mind, future-proofing that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think a big part of it as well is what you said about choosing the projects that you work on. Is if you're going to go into a home and you're just there to slap a bit of paint on it, make it look a bit nice, and then you're going to sell it, well, I'm not the architect for you then. You're looking for people that want to build a family home or create a family home and want to stay there for 10, 15 years. And in that case, what you're offering, where you mentioned, stripping it back and the insulation, that's a worthwhile investment. You'll get it back eventually. Yeah. And also you're getting a beautiful family home that is going to sustain you for however long.
And there's another way that we look at that, is that there's often times that we'll design the entire house and the entire project, but knowing that they're only going to do the extension right now, and then they'll maybe do the living room, and then they'll do the hall, and then they can piecemeal approach it, especially in deep retrofit like this. So we've, this room is almost finished that we're sitting in, fully painted. If I had to take you through the other room, that's nowhere near, that's back at the beginning. But you can close the door on it, work fully on one room, get that finished, and then it's done. That room's now picked off the list. You can move somewhere else in the property. And for us, that's the only way we can do it. We don't have, 100 grand sitting to be able to fully renovate this entire house in one clean swoop. We also just don't have the time to make those decisions. We don't have, I'm too busy making those decisions for other people rather than sitting down here and doing it in the house. But that is an approach that happens a lot, where we'll do almost a piecemeal approach to the build in different phases.
Our regular listeners would have heard this many a time, but the analogy I always use there is the cleanest house is always the messiest, because it's the same for us with the marketing that we do, and we've got a lot better at it, but you're too busy doing it for other people, so you never get a chance to do it yourself.
Never get a chance to do it for yourself. And we all need to get better at taking that time to do the things for ourselves as well, but it's difficult. We've spoke about it at the beginning, the pressures of running the business take over at times.
So Connor, we've touched on sustainability being a real big part of the future of the industry. What other trends are you seeing, sort of specifically in residential architecture right now, and how do you see the industry evolving in the next sort of 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, sustainability obviously is one of the big ones. In Scotland, we've got a mandate out at the minute that all new build properties, new build houses, will be certified passive house equivalent by 2028, which is very soon. And they're going through a two-stage consultation process for that. So we're going to see a real shift in the industry up here towards that. And it's good that we're well ahead of the curve with being certified for a number of years now and constantly working on these types of projects. But the other big shift that we're seeing is everything's digital nowadays. Everything we do, we're meeting virtually and digitally right now. So we're already heavily invested in stuff like that. A lot of our booking systems that I spoke about earlier, everything's all digital. People can just go onto the Instagram or onto the website, effortlessly just click a button, and they've got a consultation call booked, meeting booked, all that kind of stuff. I'm constantly working at how to better digitalize the actual design process. So we already use like cutting edge 3D modeling software and 3D visualization software so that people can see it from a design point of view. That's all fine. But it's more about the process for me. How can we digitally improve that? So over the years, like feedback that we got from clients was that, they loved everything, but there was times where we couldn't get hold of you, or we were, chasing for information or whatever that may have been. So what we've done is we've now developed an online client portal, that every single project now has access to their own portal. And inside that has project briefing documents, existing drawings, concept design, planning. Every single set of drawings they all live on this digital Notion portal. All the invoicing structure, everything's all there. So they get to see transparently everything about their project lives there. So if they've got a question or they don't know where something is, they can just hop straight on there and find it. But even more than that, now we're developing a kind of a tool that basically sends out an automated email every single Friday to every single client, and it's in test mode at the minute. But basically, as I go through a project, I'm ticking off tasks that have been done. I'm filling in, on the 4th of July, I contacted building control, whatever it is, shorthand notes on there. And this software will then automatically send an email every Friday. Here's the key updates from your project. Everyone then transparently knows what's going on. You might not have heard from me for 3 or 4 weeks, but that's because he's chasing up the engineer, he's speaking to planning, or he's almost finished the draft build drawings. We should hear from him shortly. Great. Because there's nothing worse than you're sitting waiting on something or expecting something and you don't know where it is and you can't get hold of people. If they can just see that, with a click of a button onto their own portal on a Friday, at 4:30, you're getting an email that says X, Y, and Z has been done. Great. Everyone's updated. Everyone knows what's going on. And what it does is actually frees up more of my time to actually spend time doing the design work and invest more in that than, having to phone round or type up emails to 10 different clients every Friday and lose the full day. So
Yeah.
yeah, for us, it's about it's moving into that digital world and continuing with these kind of things.
Yeah, I think I always say to my lot here, even if there is nothing really to update, let's say we've got a client, we're doing something for them, and there's nothing really to update them on, or nothing that they really need to know about as such. If they don't hear anything, like I always, it really annoys me when we're chased, because I feel like we should have got there first, even if it's just a quick email. I haven't forgotten about you. This is what's happening. We're going to know next week. Have a great weekend. That just stops that, because I feel like if you're being chased, you're on the back foot, and I've never liked being in that position.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever felt this as well, but I feel like I've got a sixth sense for it sometimes as well. Like, and you'll think, oh, we should update Mr. or Mrs. whoever. And if you don't do it, it's an absolute certainty. Later on that evening or tomorrow morning, they're going to contact you. So it just being on that front foot is important. Yeah.
And having that digital platform as well, as you say, because it's twofold. You're able to proactively communicate with your clients, which builds up it's huge trust, and there's a lot of value there in itself, and it gives them that confidence that you're on the ball, you're proactive, you know what you're doing. But also the other side of that is it frees up your time, because you're not having to deal with people phoning up and asking for updates. So it's to harness that.
Yeah, phoning up and asking, oh, can we get a copy of the planning drawings? Everything's all there. It's so you just open up the portal, click on what stage of the project you want, document vault, there you go, download. Everything is so easy to do.
It's a great idea. And it's also as well, you'll forgive me for saying this, or our listeners will anyway, the sort of construction and built environment industry, when it comes to embracing modern technology, I would say, or certainly in our experience, has sometimes been a bit behind the curve. Because it's has been anyway, quite a traditional sort of sector, if you like. But there are now, and this is why we work with the people we work with in the sector, and what I say to my clients, there are a different generation of decision makers coming through now, that are digital savvy and expect a certain level of service. And expect to be sort of communicated in a certain way. And if you're not geared up for that, you might be okay now, but there will come a time where you're going to be on the back foot if you're not prepared for it. And the steps you've taken already to do that, you're only going to benefit from it.
I mean, even for me, I think we're almost beyond email nowadays as well. We all still use it on a daily basis, but it's such a, it feels like such an old-fashioned way of communicating with your clients. Like, most of my clients have now got a WhatsApp group chat with them in it, because it's actually easier. I'm out on the road, I'm away at another site, but I can shoot a quick one-liner message, oh, we need this information, or could you grab me this, or even just how's it going on site? It's just so much quicker. It's more, yeah, it's just easier to access that information. The downside to that is also that clients now expect 24-hour access to people. It's about setting those boundaries at the beginning of the project. But, this is our working time. I might message in the evening about something, but, that might be a one-off, or, we might message back and forth, but it shouldn't be an expectation that is something that is available at all times to people. That's also why we're building these other platforms for information for them. It just means that they don't need to rely so heavily on, physical communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's setting your stall out early. And also, as well, I think a lot of it comes down to picking your clients wisely.
Yeah.
I've, in the past, and we've all been through it, certain red flags, and you think, oh, you might need the job because your pipeline's not looking great, or you're trying to build the business or whatever. And you ignore the red flags, and then a few months down the line, you think, oh, I knew this was going to be a nightmare. This person doesn't respect my boundaries, expects 24-hour access and all the rest of it. So with experience, I think, comes choosing wisely, but also as well, I think, being upfront and say setting boundaries, but, just having the level of communication that's healthy to the project. Because I've had it with clients where, it's going to sound like, but they're bothering you with something that is preventing you from actually doing the work that would answer their question in the first place. So there's almost, exactly, there's almost an element of, if you just let me get on with it, then it will be fine. But obviously there are ways to handle that, and I don't advise anyone to handle it that way. But
No,
a lot of that though, a lot of that say conflict or that situation does arise because of a few steps earlier you perhaps didn't do the right thing. And I think setting up those communication channels, I mean, we use Slack. So when we onboard clients, they all get their own channel, they're all on there, everything is accessible, contracts, fee structure, anything that they could ever ask for. And we've built this up through experience, the times we've been asked for stuff, everything's on there. And also as well, what I like about it, and to your point about emails, is it does away with that dear Mr. So-and-so.
That formality, I hope you are well.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 like,
it's just straight to the point.
One-line question at the end.
Exactly that. So we that's what we do. And I think you're right. I think email now, it still serves a purpose, of course, but that day-to-day communication now with people, it's, well, we don't use it for that anyway.
Yeah.
I used to get, especially when I was in the legal world similar to construction is a bit traditional, but you'd be getting 70, 80, 90 emails a day, sometimes more. Whereas now, I mean, I go hours without looking at my inbox because everything's in Slack. So
yeah.
It's definitely changing.
Yeah, definitely. But no, not many people in our industry, and it's maybe different in other areas, but inside our little kind of Glasgow-ish bubble of architects at our scale, certainly, there's not many people embracing technology in the same way that some of it, people like myself, and there's one or two other practices doing it, but there's not many of us doing it, and this is the digital age that we're living in. Our clients are getting younger now, and the big one was always booking calls. People want to do things on the phone. People don't actually like phoning up to ask, can I arrange a meeting, or can I do this, or they don't like filling in an online form. If you just press a button and it's done, that's what people want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Connor, let's bring it home. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and this is the first time we've had anyone on from Scotland. So you've got that.
Nice to fly the flag for the country.
But honestly, mate, it's been a pleasure having you on. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Some great insights there into what you do and how you do it, and also I really enjoyed speaking to you about the sustainability points as well. And it's great to see a business in our sector embracing the digital world and moving it forward. So fair play to you.
Yeah. No, thanks very much. Thanks for your time. It's been really enjoyable as well.
Speak soon. Right. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Jason. Bye.